Hello, my name is David Solano, a senior from Regis High School in New York City. It's a pleasure to speak to you all today on my third IFTJ, and I hope you listen and learn from my story. Although I'm a New Yorker, I consider many places across the country and even across the world home. Take one community, for example, where I grew up after my parents had just immigrated into the US from Mexico, Tucson, Arizona. Un derecho y un revés. One right and one reverse. My hands tremble with precision, embracing the silver hooks of my great abuelita. Cada hilo hace su sombra. Every string makes a difference. Mi mamá prioritized survival skills that my sister and I had to master before we grew up. But the most important was learning how to sew. While classmates would be attending soccer practices, I joined mi mamá in sewing classes. El Ministerio Hispano, our parish's Hispanic ministry, was just an hour away from the US-Mexico border. It was a melting pot of Latin America. We would crochet with other immigrant families, crafting tapestries unique with tradition. Mi mamá was raised in a blend of Spanish-Mexican and indigenous Nahua heritage. She once spoke Nahua. It's a threat of cultural assimilation. In the face of this struggle, hope is still preserved through tradition in everyday acts of resistance, like the stitches we made together. Yet, if this culture fades, lives and legacy. Our heritage comes from a long line of tailors, each who have fought for our family's future through textile work. Following in these noble stitches, my parents worked tirelessly for the American dream, often sacrificing a sense of home. We constantly moved for better economical, educational, and even more opportunities that we could seek, from Florida to Arizona, New York City to Long Island. Every stop felt like we were cutting strings we tried to sew short. I felt outside the loops of others, especially in my predominantly Irish-Italian middle school. Classmates mocked my lunchboxes arroz con leche, my language I spoke when I was picked up, my culture. Even teachers questioned my parents' politics and citizenship in front of the class. I was asked if my parents were real Americans. And when I responded, why were we used as examples of doing it right? Although we were promised equality, we felt less than equal. Yet, even then, I held onto the quiet hope that our traditions were stronger than any prejudice. I should be more than grateful to even have this dialogue, to have an education and a home. I've carried the pressure of assimilation my whole life, attempting to understand a saying I once was encouraged to follow when restarting an old sewing project. Renovarse o morir, to renew oneself or to die. Leaving behind our family in Mexico felt almost treason. Indigenous people are labeled as radicals by the Mexican administration. The US is no different. America has perpetuated a cycle of native marginalization, destruction, and assimilation. The crisis at our borders derives from countless root problems. Yet before any borders were even drawn out, those lands were once home for these communities. I felt devastated for my ancestors. But in being born in the US, I knew how much privilege I held. The silver lining of my citizenship took a tangible meaning, maneuvering my needles to fight for a future for my heritage. Following Catholic social teaching, I felt encouraged to begin at the smallest communal threads to fight this larger injustice. As the president of the New York City chapter of the Kino Border Initiative, I've helped plan school trips to the border, welcomed bus arrivals with food and clothing, and ran fundraisers for ESL materials. With my school's local parish, St. Ignatius of Loyola, I've helped organize an immigration accompaniment center, hosting ESL classes every weekend to over 30 migrant families. I translate for countless asylum cases, breaching the gap between an English-speaking attorney and a Spanish-speaking family. My community, however, went beyond New York. I had to fight for my indigenous ancestors. What better way to protest than to actually sow change? Since 2021, I've worked with Corazón Verde, an artisanal nonprofit that supports many who face the triple discrimination of being poor Indigenous women. They sell their sewn goods with a pledge of comercio justo, or a just market, represented by livable wages and equitable benefits. With my sister and the rest of the team, we fought for 8 communities of Indigenous artists from Chiapas, Puebla, Hidalgo, Estado de Mexico, and La Ciudad de Mexico, justly compensating them in fundraising over $10,000 here in the US, alongside advocating for their human rights in conferences just like IFTJ. You can sow action for justice in each of your own communities. If you are a US citizen, where can you use your privilege to build a more equitable world? Within your homes, which voices are amplified? Which voices are missing? How can you thread steadfast hope amidst the precarious times that we live in today? Whilst prejudice builds walls, empathy bridges hearts. Regardless if you are an experienced tailor or are just learning beginner stitches, I leave you with the saying I began with, the saying mi mamá taught me when I finished my first granny square. Cada hilo hace su. Every string makes a difference. Thank you.